to our River Detectives students and staff from right across the state. I'm joining you today. I'm Nicole Howie, statewide coordinator of the River Detectives program, and coordinating and supporting schools in the North Central CMA region. This is another Ask the Expert webinar in a suite of webinars that we offer to our River Detective schools, where we pick a topic that we know that you'd like to hone in on. We ask an expert to join us and we pose some questions to them, often supplied by our River Detective schools themselves. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that I'm on Jara country, so pay respects to the Jara elders, past, present and emerging. And I would like to introduce, and thank you for joining us, to Justine Holmes, the statewide WaterWatch facilitator. Hi, Justine.
Hi, Nicole.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for interviewing me today.
A pleasure. And what country are you joining us from, Justine?
I'm coming from Wadawurrung country in Torquay, so I also pay my respects to traditional owners, past, present and emerging.
Lovely. Beautiful beach behind you, and I've got an inland waterway in my background, which is probably very pertinent to where we're sitting in the landscape right now.
Yes, absolutely.
So our topic for today is delving into the data. So we know that our River Detective schools are busy out there collecting data on water quality, water bugs and habitat. They're busy uploading their data, but we often get people asking me, Justine, how can we retrieve our data? How can we use it? How can we even look for data from other schools or other places around Victoria? And it just so happens that a wonderful new WaterWatch portal has been launched this year. So we thought it was a really good timing to talk to you and get you to show us around it a bit and all of the features that can help schools do that.
Yes, I can definitely do that.
Yeah, so thank you. We put an invitation out for questions. We know schools are really busy, so I haven't received any specific questions, but I've put together this chat knowing that these are the questions that I often get asked and the frequently asked questions. So I hope that they answer the things that people are interested in. Okay, so before we start talking specifically about the data and WaterWatch portal, I'd love to share my screen to just talk a little bit about you and how you got to be where you are. So on the screen we can see, and I'll just put that into the mode where we are looking at it on the large screen. There we are. We can see you in your role as the statewide facilitator of the WaterWatch program, which must be an awesome job. And on the right is an interesting picture you sent to me to explain a little bit about how you got into that role. So I'd love you to explain.
That is one part of a small journey, though. That's tomatoes actually in my hand there on the right. And that's at the community garden in Torquay. So just before I got the job as the state WaterWatch facilitator, I was the president of the community garden in Torquay, and I was working a lot with volunteers. So that gave me really good experience with working in a community and working with volunteers, which is a big part of my job at the moment. So I don't necessarily work on the ground with volunteers, but I do support the coordinators who work directly with the volunteers. So that photo is at the community garden there, but there's a much longer story, but I'll try and make it short, Nicole, that goes before that. So I studied aquaculture and seafood science over 20 years ago in Perth. And then I went on to study science communication after that. And I ended up in a job working in the Department of Fisheries overseas in Tonga for a year. And then after that, I lived in Broome for a few years working at the Department of Fisheries there in a community education role. Yeah. And then I switched to running education programs in Aboriginal communities. So I'd had experience working in schools in my fisheries job. So then I switched to running education programs in Aboriginal communities in the Kimberley. And then I ended up in Victoria running programs in Aboriginal communities in health. And then I ended up working at the NDIA in disability, working with communities. And then I saw this job advertised at the Corangamite Catchment Management Authority, and it was back working in natural resource management. So I'd had that experience way back when. I had the experience with volunteers. I had experience working with communities, and I ended up getting the job, and it's been really fantastic.
What a diverse range of things that you've done.
It's all over the place.
Isn't it? Literally over the country and also in different sectors of the community. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. So the WaterWatch program, for those that don't know, is, well, I'll let you tell everybody. We know what river detectives are. Our audience will know that. But can you just explain what WaterWatch is and speak to this slide a little bit?
So WaterWatch is a program that's been running for over 30 years, and it's run by volunteers, and they go out to their local rivers and they check the water quality. So it's very similar to river detectives, but they go out regularly on a monthly basis. There's normally a group of people, and they measure a range of parameters. So they also use a range of tools as well. So they could use handheld meters to be measuring dissolved oxygen, or they might be using multimeters, which is a more expensive equipment to be using to measure all different kinds of parameters in their waterway. And then they go back and upload that data to the portal, which is then displayed to the public. And this project or program is really fantastic for community members understanding what a healthy waterway is. And it's also a great way for the local catchment management authority to speak to those volunteers about the projects that are happening and how everything's working together, and why it's really important for communities to care about our waterways.
Yeah. Yeah, so being the similarities, I suppose, if I go on to the next slide, they're both citizen science programs, aren't they? So, you know, it is impossible for our experts to be everywhere all of the time. So to have this vast network of community volunteers through WaterWatch, represented by the photo up in the top right. And that's me, because I am a WaterWatch volunteer as well on my local waterway, Bendigo Creek. And I've done that since, oh goodness, I must be up to around 10 years now, I think.
Wow.
And then in the bottom left-hand corner being river detectives. So we've got this network of river detective schools, over 100 schools, all out there, yeah, doing much the same as each other, but in their own way. So I suppose I like to think of WaterWatch as the big sister school, the big sister program, and the river detectives is the youth equivalent, so the little sister. So they're sister programs, and very similar, just different in terms of the audience. They both upload their data to different places, but they end up in the same place, as we'll explain during this webinar. So really great similarities, and yeah, amazing work being done by volunteers all across the state, whether it's for WaterWatch or river detectives. So here are some examples of what WaterWatchers get up to, Justine. Would you like to, talk a little bit about what happens out and about for those volunteers?
So this is a new group that's been set up in Melbourne on the Merry Creek, and they are out collecting water samples. And you can see that they're down at the creek with their pole, collecting the water in the right-hand bottom picture, and then they're up on land testing it with all of their equipment. And this group is actually been given an extra job as well. I think they are trying to record growling grass frog numbers as well when they've been going out, or they're going out more regularly to check for frog numbers as well. So they will be going out monthly to do water quality, and a few more sessions to see about frog numbers using the Melbourne Census Frog app here.
Yeah, lovely. And I suppose, it's quite diverse who volunteers. They could be, they might be a friends of group that have a particular interest in a waterway, or I know for myself, I'm a land care member, so our group works a lot along Bendigo Creek doing habitat restoration. So we're always interested in how the creek's faring. Could be students, couldn't it? It could be just people that have had a science background that still want to use those skills and knowledge.
It can be anyone. If you've got an interest in it, that's really all you need. You don't need to have any special skills or be a scientist or Yeah, you can just be any
Yeah.
sort of person with an interest in your local waterway.
That's right. No, great program. And, you know, over time, providing so much data that will help track the health of our waterways and inform projects that are happening. So I'll stop sharing that screen for the moment, because what I would like to point out, and I'll share the River Detectives website now, because that's what our schools know. So when we're on the River Detectives website, as schools collect their data, they'll go to this Let's Test and Record tab. And down here, there'll be the button to record now. And mostly it's water science or water quality that they are recording. Schools do a lot of water bug stuff. They may not get to the point of uploading, and occasionally schools do upload habitat data as well. Okay, so here we are here where this is our River Detectives data portal. So schools would go in, use the calendars and the drop-down menus to pop in their results for temperature, pH, salinity, turbidity, and phosphorus. They can upload a photo, and when they get to they put in all of their other observations about water appearance, water flow, the weather, any litter, and then they will submit their data. And then it goes off somewhere. Perhaps River Detective schools don't know where it ends up, but that will be very familiar to schools as to where they put in their data. What I would like to show schools is that this tab here, Explore the State, is the launching pad for going in and delving into the data from the River Detectives website. And I don't know whether schools have had a go at this before. So I'd like to have a little bit of a tour of this tab before we move across to the WaterWatch portal. So this Explore the State gives us a snippet of the WaterWatch portal. There's a few things that it can do. So I'm just going to play with a few things here to show you the options. So if we just click River Detectives, it will show us by the red dots all of the River Detective schools that are registered across the state at the current time. So there's a really great network there, which in itself is a great thing to show your students, to see that they're part of something bigger and a whole movement across the state. I can also click, I can zoom in, I can zoom out. I can click down here, and it's on CMA boundaries. Oh, I'll get rid of that. Sorry. On CMA boundaries. So if you're wondering where you fit in the CMAs, you'll see the boundaries come up. I can also get a little bit more in depth there by clicking the river basins of Victoria. So this is an interesting tool for schools to see if they belong, in the Loddon River basement, the Avon Richardson basement, catchment or basin, just to see where you are in the landscape. So that's another feature of this map. I can also get really technical and add the waterways. If you want to see all of those little blue lines all across the catchment, then they can be put up as well. And you just have to click on them again to take off that so it doesn't look so busy. So that's something that you can play around with there, just exploring the maps. The other thing you can do is you can click the area that you belong to. So for example, for me, I can click North Central, and it will also add in blue dots for all of the WaterWatch volunteers. So that then shows the bigger cohort that you belong to, of not just River Detective schools, but the North Central WaterWatch volunteers as well. The other really cool thing it does is we can click on a parameter. So for example, we might click on electrical conductivity, and it will actually show, according to this scale here, the average ranges of electrical conductivity for a given year. So at the moment, I'm in 2024. Okay, so as of last year, this is showing me the average electrical conductivity ratings, which can be really interesting. And if you choose different parts of the state, you will see that some parts of the state are higher in salinity than others. And then I can actually do a historical investigation. So I can actually choose a different year, anywhere right back to 94, actually. It does depend, of course, on the monitors that were taking part. So there weren't so many monitors in North Central CMA then, but in the Wimmera, we could start to compare historically whether electrical conductivity has improved or, well, I hope it's improved. I'm not even going to talk about the opposite situation. Of course, it will have improved over the years. So there's some interesting things that schools and students can start to explore in this tab of the River Detectives website. If we start to zoom right in, and perhaps you're from a school and you want to delve into your data, so we can go right in, and I'll just click River Detectives again so we can see the River Detective schools. I've chosen a school that I'm going to focus on today. So if I zoom right in, I'm choosing a school, Reedsdale Primary School, on the Campaspe River, because I know they've done a really good job in uploading data over the years. If I hover over the dot, and I know this is their dot because this is the Campaspe River, I get a yellow pointer. And I can click on that and I just get a summary. So I can see that, yes, this is the Campaspe River in Reedsdale. I can see it's part of the Campaspe catchment. There's been 17 site visits over the years from 2023 to 2025. And then I can click on the title, and this is where I leave the River Detectives website and it takes me over to the WaterWatch website for more in-depth investigation into their data. So I've made that link, Justine, just to show people how we get from River Detectives to the WaterWatch portal as an entry point. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Yes.
And if you could share your screen now to this particular site, we can have a look at the features of this new WaterWatch portal and all of the groovy things that it can do.
Okay, let me see if I can share my screen.
No worries.
Where is it? Okay. Can you see that screen?
Yes.
Is that all right,
yep,
great.
We can. So I thought it would be good for a start to maybe at the very top under the physical chemical test area, it's got level 1 minimum data standard. Can you just explain what that means for River Detectives compared to WaterWatch volunteers?
Yes, for sure. So if you are also curious, so yeah, River Detectives is a level 1 minimum data standard, and you can always hit the explain for me button and that will explain it. Yep. So for standard 1 or level 1, the data collected at this level is often by primary school students or community members with basic training, and it's still really useful data, but it may have less accuracy compared to, say, a standard 4, which might be a professional standard where staff may be going out regularly, or really regular volunteers who are doing their QA/QC, and they may also have higher level equipment, so electronic equipment to do their water quality testing.
Okay. Yep. So generally River Detective schools are level 1. Great. So then we have all these graphs for each of our parameters that our River Detective schools are testing.
Yes.
Yeah, they really look really cool. So we've got, go for it.
So we've got all of the parameters that have been tested are listed on the right-hand side. And so if I'm just looking at basic water temperature, you can run your cursor along the graph and it will give you the date and the year and what the record is. So you can see on October the 10th, I don't know if you can see that, Nicole, but
I can.
It says October 10, 2023, it was 19.
Yep.
And so at the moment down here, you can see the latest water temperature is 23.5 and the median is 13.6. And we did have a discussion about if we should show the average number here under all of the graphs, so median or average, but we decided to, David Tiller decided to go with median because he is a water expert, and he said if we use an average, that takes into account all of the numbers, and then you get that's the average. But if with the average, if you've got a really big number, that's going to throw out the score. If you've got a really little number, that will throw out the temperature, whereas the median is the number directly in the middle.
In the middle. Yep.
Yeah, I have trouble explaining that. Did that make sense?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm sure our secondary students that are watching will understand that a lot more than our grade twos.
Okay, good.
But that's the thing with River Detectives. They're from prep to grade to year 12. So, and I think I
Yes, of
find this will
course.
be, upper primary and secondary students will be the ones that, might really have that, that yearning, and their staff will be pushing them to really delve into the data. So,
Okay, good.
yeah, we're speaking to that audience really. So the graphs are awesome, and I do love that feature of hovering your cursor over the graph, and then you
Yes.
can easily see the different measurements that came in at different times. And the
Mm.
graph's just a great way of showing the trends for the time that
Yeah.
that
And if
school
you,
has collected.
the explain for me buttons are along every graph. So if you're unsure what electrical conductivity is, there it is listed there. What is it? Electrical conductivity is a measure of how much salt is dissolved in the water. And then there's a
Yep.
little bit more information about what it all means and
That's
why it's
great.
important. And this is for every parameter, which is, really love that part of the website.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I've chosen this particular school because I know they've collected a good lot of data over their time participating. So that has then meant that their section of the portal enables this new traffic light system to be displayed. So yeah,
Yes,
can you
this
tell
is
us a little
this.
bit about that?
Yeah, so we call it the water quality indicators, which probably could have a better title. But this is telling us what each parameter, if it's how it sits on the level. Is it good, moderate, poor, or very poor? So if we go back to the graph here, we can see that in 2023, the pH lower was good. And it's all of these parameters are good across that year, 2023. But if we go up to 2024, we can see that the turbidity was moderate. So it wasn't good. It's sort of one level down from good. So it could get worse, but it was moderate. So it's not too bad. And it's a really great way to see how your catchment is looking, or how this site is looking, because when you start to see the very poor or poor, that will come up as red or orange, and you can think, what happened in that year? Was there flooding, or was it dry, or what's actually happened? So it's a really good way to actually understand what the water quality was like at a particular time.
Yeah, and really visual. And that is the part of our program being River Detectives that, we hope they get to, where they're really doing that detective work and thinking about why things are happening and what they could do to help. So, yeah.
Yes, and I would like to, with this part of the portal, I would like to give it a little bit of an upgrade. So if you can see that, let's say, what did I just click on? Electrical conductivity was poor. I might have some options in there to explain why could it be poor.
Yep.
So that's coming soon. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah.
Great. And then I did notice a download data feature, so that if we do have a school wanting to do their own graphing, or to work out averages and medians and things from their own data, they would go to download data, I gather.
Yeah, there's just a button at the very top of the page.
Yep.
And there is a little form that we've now got here. So all you need to do is type in your email and your user type. So as a student, you could say secondary and then generate download, and that's sent directly to your email. And it does take a little while to get to your email. That's just so the server doesn't crash. So you do need to be a little bit patient. And also, we're not going to use your email for collecting information. We're just making sure the data gets to you. And it's going to the right place.
And that comes as an Excel spreadsheet, does it?
It does come as an Excel spreadsheet.
All the data.
That's right.
Yeah, great. Okay, and I also noticed back on the previous screen the customised charts. Is that something that would be useful for River Detective schools at all?
I think so. So if you're wanting to find out, if you're wanting to compare two parameters, so you can see on this graph, there is pH, which is in the orange, and we've got electrical conductivity in the blue.
Yep.
Oops. And now I've got that little box that's popped up, but you can compare two parameters and see, oh, I wonder what's going on here. So in January 2024, I wish that little box would disappear. So this is electrical conductivity in the blue, and the pH is quite alkaline. So what happened in January 2024 in this area, Nicole?
There was big rain, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So often that does, dilute the salinity, doesn't it, and creates a drop in electrical conductivity. Be interesting to see whether the turbidity would be sky high then too.
Yes, let's have a little look. So let me just put in turbidity. It wasn't as high as in April, but it's still relatively high compared to all the other data points. So yeah, it's a good way to compare the parameters and think back to, whoa, what's happened here? And you can remember the big rains.
Definitely. And then what I do love, and in particular why I chose this school to feature, is back in their profile, in the previous screen, if we scroll down, they've done a wonderful job of uploading photos as well. So, which I do encourage our schools to do. So they are able to visually track, river heights throughout their testing journey, which is really interesting. Yeah. So that's any photos that are uploaded through the River Detectives data portal will then appear here. So if you need to retrieve them as a school, this is where you would go, to find your photos. So I love that too.
Oh, is this your photo here, Nicole? This one for your background?
Yes, the one I've happened to put as my background. Yeah, there you go.
Great.
Another school that I thought we'd have a look at, because they've probably been involved for a long time, is Wood End Primary School. So I thought it would be useful to show people how, if they wanted to search for a different place to look at rather than their own site, how they could go directly to the WaterWatch portal and then use the search function.
Yes, so this is what the front part of the website looks like. So you can just type in WaterWatch into Google and this will come up, WaterWatch Victoria. Then you go to data and click on WaterWatch data. And I've just put this little function in here as a River Detective site. So you can now see all the River Detective sites on the map. And if I put in the search for the school, what was the code for the school?
Yeah, well, the school actually has a lovely campus at Carlsruhe, and that's where they do their testing. It's like their country campus. So it's Carlsruhe, C-A-R-L-S.
Hold on, I'll just pop it in. Oh, no, I can type it in there. C-A-R-L-S.
R-U-H-E. I was searching for it before and it came up well.
There we go. And you can see here this little box that says WQ indicator. So that means that the traffic light system will be on that page if it's got that little tick box there.
Yep.
And all right, if I click on it here. And they've got the habitat scores as well, which is really interesting.
Yes, that's one reason why I thought we'd have a look at that as well, because they do regular habitat surveys as well.
Fantastic.
So that's come up with the traffic light system.
That's great. And we can see here, if you also want to know, well, what does a good, excellent or poor habitat score looks like, we can see here that there's an explanation for poor would mean there's significant alterations from the natural state to very degraded, may have moderate to severe erosion or sedimentation problems. Or if it's an excellent or it's blue, the site is in natural or virtually natural condition and it's excellent habitat condition. So if you're looking for the explanation, so it looks like it's actually a really great site, except for here, in-stream cover, March 2023. I wonder what happened there. But if we have a look, if I click on that particular time, we could also see, we could have it go into March 2023 and see what had happened there and pop that into the graph to see.
To try and investigate further.
Or we could also have a look here as well. But it's all easy to find using the Explain for Me button. You can understand it that way. And also you can have a look over here on these
And
graphs.
I can see in that habitat area just underneath Explain for Me that they've been uploading from 2012 till 2024. So that's 12 years, not consistently throughout, but it's
No, but I
interesting for a
think
comparison.
yeah, incredible. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. The only other button there that I was wondering about was that View All Site Visits
Oh,
button.
okay. Yep.
What does
So
that one do?
this View All Sites button is at the bottom of all of the graphs. And yeah, you can see the habitat scores.
Every upload. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see them all. You can actually see them all underneath each other. So you can do probably a little bit of a better comparison.
Yep. So it's almost like a preliminary thing before you download the data. If you were looking for a particular time and what was happening, you could, have a look there as well.
Do a bit of a deep dive that way.
Great. Well, it looks really user-friendly, and I think it would be really useful for schools wishing to delve into the data. It's
I hope so.
Yeah, and I just hope by seeing where it ends up too, that schools will be more aware of that. Really great, please, if you're collecting the data, please go that extra step and upload it, because it certainly goes to a bigger place, and it's housed with all of the data from every river detective school and WaterWatch volunteer across the state. And can you tell me a little bit about then who has access to this data, Justine? So it's good for our schools to look into, but who else might be looking at this data?
Well, we have the decision makers looking at this data, and those decision makers often sit within the catchment management authorities, and they can see the historical data and can see what's happening at the moment as well, and they can use that to help them to make decisions about managing that waterway. But increasingly, I think the data is becoming more and more important with climate change. So as we're seeing things change a lot, it's really good to see what is the history of this site and how is it changing and what potentially will it look like. And we've had some scientists really using these long-term data sets to figure out what the future could look like and what it did look like in the past.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point to make too. I know as a WaterWatch volunteer, we're always encouraged to still enter data even if there was very little water, or in fact even if your waterway is dry, and that's not always an interesting scenario for a school doing their testing, but by uploading that, I can imagine into the future it will show trends in times of dry and wet, and whether or not that's increasing, and what time of year waterways are increasingly staying dry for longer periods. We hope that doesn't happen, but it may well show those trends in climate change, mightn't it?
Yeah, and I think I would also encourage schools or people, I don't know, teachers or schools to post maybe on their school Facebook group or on their community group saying, hey, we monitored today, and you could say, interestingly, the turbidity was a little bit off compared to other weeks, and we think it could be this. So really trying to put the information that you've got out into the community so everybody can learn and understand how is it changing and what does this mean? Because sometimes it can get stuck on the portal, not stuck, but I think we need to find more ways to get it out into the community and help people understand about our waterways.
Okay, yes. So our schools are out there collecting data quite regularly on their water bugs, their water quality, and the habitat surveys, and we do hope they're uploading that data. But I do say that same point to our schools, Justine, that they are doing the hard work, they're collecting the data, they're uploading it. That's a great step, but while you've got the data, let's share it even further. So what can we do with our data is another little section of this presentation that I'd like to just focus on for a moment. So on the River Detectives website, there's a couple of really great posters that are available for download. This one is just your year at a glance. So even though you're uploading your data and it's going into the portal, even if you want to just keep a paper copy of what you're finding every month. And I often suggest to schools to laminate this, maybe enlarge it up to A3, laminate it, and then just continue to write on it every month in whiteboard marker to show the results for each of the parameters. And it could be that you put the number and also the rating. So you might put EC was 500, that was excellent. Turbidity was 20, that was excellent. And just those simple things across the row, and any notes, you know, you might say it had rained a lot that particular week, or that was particularly high, or not particularly good that month. Just something simple. And then that actual poster can be used. It might be put in the foyer of the school so that visitors to the school can have a look at it. It might be that it's scanned and put into the school newsletter. It might be presented at school assembly where students stand up and talk to it. It might be presented, a photo taken of it and popped onto the school Facebook page or a community Facebook page. So yeah, I agree, Justine. If we're doing the hard work to collect the data, why not make it, value add and make it really work in as many places as possible. This then also becomes a great data set. So from here, you can easily read down the column by November and track trends in your different tests and possibly do some simple graphing. Even grade 2s can do simple bar graphs. You can make it more complicated the higher grade level you go up. But I would suggest for graphing that turbidity in particular and EC are probably two really great parameters to graph. Mainly because they do change quite a bit. So you do have some interesting ebbs and flows, highs and lows, and also they're nice round whole numbers. So you're not dealing with the very little decimal numbers of reactive phosphorus, which might be fine for year 9s, 10s, 11s and 12s to graph, but a little trickier for the primary students. So that's a really good tool to then to do some graphing in your maths. So to make it cross-curricular, you're learning in River Detectives. And this one also is a month at a glance. So similar to the previous one, this could be a really great, this is what we found this month, pop it in a school newsletter, pop it in a Facebook page. So yes, please do share it broadly. One thing to note, and I know that we say the same thing to our WaterWatch volunteers, Justine, is just being careful, I suppose, around pointing fingers at particular landholders or industries. You know, we don't want to be blaming or shaming particular places and alluding that they are the complete reason for a downturn in water quality. So that's just a point I would make there. But in terms of sharing with the community, there's some great examples of what our River Detective schools have done. So Rutherglen Primary School last year had a display at the Rutherglen show. So it was just the agricultural show, the whole community turning out, and their primary school did a display to showcase the sorts of programs that their school is involved in. So that's a photo on the left. Explaining their River Detectives work and all of the sustainability programs they're involved in. So I thought that was wonderful. And on the right is Reedsdale Primary, and we were looking at their data before. There's an old-fashioned notice board, and there's nothing wrong with that either. So in the town, there's a notice board, and when they can, they put their monthly data details up on the community notice board, probably for locals and also for visitors, because it's in a popular spot in town where people stop off at the toilet, go for a little walk, stretch their legs, and that's a nice way to show what the school's doing. And two other really great examples, and there are so many out there. Chewton Primary School ran a Healthy Waterways Day in springtime last year, and they had a whole heap of rotational activities. One of them was their own students doing a kind of a kids teaching kids thing, where they got up and they explained water bug sampling, involved students from other schools in water bug sampling, and shared some of the data that they found in the past and what that means. What does a healthy water bug sample mean for water quality and for the health of the other things in the waterway, so the plants and the animals. So again, another great example. And then I think this is amazing. The students at Rutherglen, again, very proactive school, they presented at the Murray-Darling Basin Authority's River Reflections Conference last year. Or was it 2023? I'm trying to remember now. But a room full of experts, so hydrologists, geologists, ecologists, very educated and probably intimidating audience. And they got up in front of that whole audience and talked about their river detectives journey, shared some things that they've learned about their waterway through their water quality testing. So yeah, that was a very high profile place to share their data.
Amazing.
Amazing, wasn't it? So lots of great examples. They don't have to be that big. That could just be your school newsletter, but all very well worth doing. The other thing I wanted to show too, when we're talking about who uses the data, so here are some examples from the North Central CMA region. So we had a project over 10 years or so here called Caring for the Campaspe River. And a lot of that was working with landholders right along the length of the Campaspe on a range of river restoration projects. One of them was working with landholders to fence their frontage, so financial incentives and help to fence out their frontage, and then to install infrastructure, pumps and pipes up onto troughs behind the fence. So rather than the stock, whether it was cattle or sheep, actually traversing down the bank, causing quite a lot of damage with their hooves, eating the bank vegetation and making it quite bare, which of course we know is what then stimulates erosion and the increase in turbidity. By fencing out their frontage and then installing a trough in the paddock, their stock was still able to access the river water, just not by the river itself. So then there was opportunities to revegetate that area between the fence and the river. So it's a really great, simple way that landholders can make a difference. And because we had a whole heap of WaterWatch volunteers along the length of the Campaspe River and river detective schools, their data was really important, and it has been throughout the life of that project and will continue to be as that revegetation and those works start to take effect. We hope to see, further improvements in turbidity, salinity, phosphorus throughout over the years. So it's not only informing projects about what we need to do to make waterways more healthy, but also tracking them and tracking their success. And another really great example, and a different one, is some of our northern waterways that in our North Central region have been part of the Native Fish Recovery Plan project. So a big focus on helping our native fish with a whole raft of on-ground works. And one of them, well, two of them shown here, is re-snagging, so putting woody debris back in the waterways. So often in the past, they've been taken out, they've been seen as a nuisance and clogging up waterways, but we know that our waterways need those snags to provide habitat for our water bugs, which then feed all of the things above them, including the native fish. So a whole heap of re-snagging's been done, coupled with revegetation that you can see on the right. So again, we've got landholders up there and our North Central CMA staff regularly testing the water quality to track how that is improving. So yeah, it's definitely a really one part of a bigger picture when we do these river restoration projects to inform the work and also track the work over many years. So it's all very useful to be a citizen science and help contribute that data. And the last thing I wanted to try and do, Justine, is we've got these two great projects, and just to keep our minds open to the ways that we could be leaning on each other a little bit. So I don't know whether you've ever had some thoughts about this, and it obviously depends on the capacity of the people involved, but we have a whole heap of WaterWatch volunteers and a whole heap of river detective schools out there. So, I often say to river detective schools, there could be an opportunity where a very keen WaterWatch volunteer somewhere in your area may wish to come in and visit a school and share their experience and what they've learnt about their waterway over the years. Do you think WaterWatch volunteers might be interested in that if they were approached?
So, and there's a lot of areas where it's a lot of retired people who are doing WaterWatch, so they've got a bit more time than your average person who's working. So I think that is definitely a possibility.
Yeah, it's something to consider anyway. And vice versa, you know, maybe there are some WaterWatch groups out there that would like to hear from river detective schools and
I think they
what
would love
they're
that.
doing.
Yeah, I think they would love that. Yeah.
Yes, you could get together on the waterway and do the testing together and have a chat together. Yeah, so if schools or WaterWatch volunteers, this webinar will also be available to WaterWatch volunteers to watch too, Justine. If anyone ever has any ideas on collaborating, we'd be ears all open to those opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other way that River Detectives and WaterWatch naturally collaborates is just that beautiful pathway. So I really just wanted to highlight that WaterWatch can be the next step for a lot of our River Detectives volunteers. The screen here is showing a really great example of that. I interviewed Tess Williamson a couple of years ago for one of these Ask the Expert webinars. Now, Tess was a student at the Karlsruhe campus of Wood End Primary School, featured up in the top left-hand corner there. We were looking at their data earlier. Really great school, focused on sustainability, and they test the Campaspe River at Karlsruhe regularly. She loved the River Detectives program as a grade 4 student, and it stayed in her mind so that when she was studying at Braemar College as a secondary student, she thought, I think I might volunteer as a WaterWatch volunteer. And that's her there doing her phosphorus test. So she saw that as a way to keep up her skills. She really enjoyed it. And at the same time, it was adding something really useful to her resume. That then led to her going on to study environmental science at university. I think it was RMIT, where she studied environmental science. She continued being a WaterWatch volunteer. And that added to all of the practical work that she was doing. And now she is the Citizen Science Officer at the Environmental Protection Authority, or the EPA. So it's just a lovely journey, isn't it? And you were telling me about another example in the Corangamite area, Justine.
Yeah, we had Jake, who was a WaterWatch volunteer as an adult, or young adult, so he was in his early 20s. And then he was working in comms and he didn't really love his job. And then a job came up in comms at the local CMA, and he got that job because he knew about it through the WaterWatch program. Yeah. And then after working in comms for a year or two now, he's working and learning in the estuary management space. So yeah, he's done really well just from volunteering in WaterWatch and understanding all the different jobs that come from and potentially come from that.
That's right. So, you know, what you're doing in River Detectives is certainly something that can take you through to bigger and better things if it really captures your interest and energy and enthusiasm. And I'll just share this last screen. These are my two sons. So it was a few years ago now. They're now 16 and 18. But Ned on the right, they both started WaterWatch volunteering with me because we live out of town. So we would stop on the way home, we'd collect the water, we'd do the test on site and then head home to upload the data. So they've been doing that with me for, 6 or 7 years and could do it on their own quite easily without me. Ned has just finished year 12 and he's now studying environmental engineering at Deakin University in Geelong. And, was finding that adjustment a little tricky and, adjusting to university life and thinking about how he could add something into his downtime there that would keep him busy and add a bit of structure to his routine. So I suggested that maybe with his experience in WaterWatch, he could reach out to the local WaterWatch network. So through the Corangamite CMA, they found a group for him that were looking for some extra volunteers. And now he's going out onto a wetland in Geelong, helping on a monthly basis with some WaterWatch testing. So, yeah, he's just continuing his WaterWatch volunteering, but in a different part of the state, which is interesting because it would differ vastly from the results we're seeing at Bendigo Creek. And again, that's something more on his resume. It'll hold him in good stead when it's, he's looking for jobs or for work placements and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I'd highly recommend to any river detectives out there to consider WaterWatch. Is there actually a minimum age at all, Justine, to become a WaterWatch volunteer?
No, well, I think you need to be over 18, but as long as you've got a parent with you if you're under
Yes,
18.
true.
So yeah, you could definitely join if you
Yeah.
are under that age for sure, if your
Yeah.
parents with you.
Wonderful. Well, that's food for thought for our river detectives out there. The only other thing I wanted to mention, that although we've been looking at the WaterWatch portal for specific school sites, all the data's there, isn't it? So if schools are wishing to compare their site with another site, perhaps downstream of them on their same waterway or upstream of them, they can just use the map, can't they, to explore,
Yeah.
pick a site and delve into their data.
Yes, that's right. Just go to that page that we looked at before.
Yes.
And yeah, just zoom into the map of any area of interest and you'll be able to see all the sites that have been monitored.
Yeah. So that's really useful, looking at what's happening upstream or downstream of you. It could also be really useful if you are in perhaps the Corangamite CMA region, but you're in the top of the region and you'd like to compare perhaps a site down in the bottom of the region compared.
Yeah.
And perhaps even across the state. So I know we've got, perhaps the Loddon River at the very lower catchment, is a very brown looking, very agricultural river. They might say, oh, I wonder how that compares to a very clear bubbling stream in the Northeast CMA, Alpine region, to just really compare what different landscapes mean for water quality. So all the data's there. You just have to zoom in on the map and choose either a school or a WaterWatch volunteers site, and you can completely delve into the data as far as your heart's content.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's been really great to have a look at that new portal. Congratulations on all the work you've done on it, because I think it's going to make it really user friendly for everybody, whether they're river detectives, WaterWatch volunteers, or anyone in the community that comes across the website. And thank you so much for your time today.
That's okay. Thanks, Nicole. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. And any other this webinar will be on our River Detectives website on the Dive Deeper tab, and all of our past Ask the Expert webinars are all housed there too, including the interview with Tess Williamson about how river detectives shaped her life. So that's another great one that you might like to watch. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Thanks.